Yo, what's going on, people? Rakim Sabri here. I cover financial trauma and financial empowerment for people who look like me. And I thought it was super appropriate for me to jump on, seeing as how I do create content for people who look like me, to talk about one of my faves, Grant Cardone, and his making rounds in the black media. So um, I'm just going to jump into it because apparently it's a big deal. So Grant Cardone, famous for his book, The 10X Rule, famous for his sales training, famous for the work that he does in real estate, has been making waves in the black media because of a recent video that surfaced where he was on, I believe, Fox News, having a conversation about how black people make up 50% of his audience, and that I believe it was black men under the age of 40 specifically, are who he goes after. And he goes into talking about how he uses very simple street terminology to connect with this audience, and basically doesn't use sophisticated vocabulary or jargon, to which I think is actually brilliant. Grant Cardone is an expert marketer. He's an expert salesperson, and he knows who his target audience is. Very similar to another big name in the personal finance and real estate space, Robert Kiyosaki. And so, because of their awareness of this audience, buying into the programs, buying into the courses, buying into the books, buying into whatever else that exists as a subscription service through these big names, their names, their platforms have been elevated within the black community. And Grant Cardone is famously referred to as Uncle G. In fact, I personally have referred to him as Uncle G. And to tell you guys a really quick story about my experience with Grant Cardone directly, my personal experience with Grant Cardone, when I wrote my second book, Financially Irresponsible, I published it and then printed copies to send out to micro influencers, large influencers. I mean, I even sent a copy to the Obamas. And of all the people that I sent copies of my book to, Grant Cardone is the only person who actually responded. And he responded with, and I completely did not expect this at all, but he responded with a handwritten card on Grant Cardone, Cardone Capital Stationery, wishing me the best of luck, thanking me for sending him the book. And it just meant a lot to me that somebody back then, when I had no platform, I was relatively new into the personal finance space, but somebody would take the time out to acknowledge a piece of work that I created. That's not to say that I know that Grant Cardone read my book. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. I don't even know if he actually wrote the note. Maybe he had a secretary do it for him. But I do know that the gesture made me feel a way. And people will, and there's, this famous quote, people will often remember how you made them feel over what you said to them, or, anything else. And so I know in that moment I felt recognized, I felt validated, I felt okay, like this is a step in the right direction. This big name in the game is responding to me. And I make reference to Grant Cardone in my book. I make reference to Robert Kiyosaki. I make reference to Dave Ramsey, because the whole point of the book was, or rather, the whole audience in my book were my current audience, right? People who look like me. I had black people in mind when I wrote Financially Irresponsible. I had the black experience in mind when I wrote Financially Irresponsible. And I wanted to be an example of black financial education, or a black financial educator, when I published that book with my face on the cover of it. And so, although people of all shapes, sizes, and colors have read Financially Irresponsible, I knew at that particular point in time who my target audience was. And it is very apparent that Grant Cardone also knows who his target audience is. So let's get into the comment, right? He's talking about how he uses street vernacular to connect with this demographic. And black media, or some other Black influencers or Black public figures have seen this clip, and it's a short clip from probably a lot longer of an interview, have seen this clip and have been circulating this clip around social media as if to say, you see, this is what he thinks of you. You see, he doesn't think that you're intelligent enough to understand the vocabulary or the jargon that exists in this world, the world of personal finance and real estate. He thinks that all of you guys are uneducated and that you are intellectually inferior. And so he has to treat you like children. And that's not how I interpreted the message at all. I interpret it as Grant Cardone is a marketing genius. He's a sales genius, and that he knew that in order for people to be invested or to buy into what it is that he was selling, that this target audience was best communicated in a way where there was familiarity, there was camaraderie established. And that absolutely is the case. I've watched him in clubhouse rooms. I've watched him in Twitter spaces filled with Black people who want to get to want to hear the gems of Grant Cardone, who want to have conversations with Grant Cardone, who want to listen to how he talks and what he talks about. And again, I've been a fan of his for a while. So I understand that he is leveraging the success of those platforms. But then I saw another clip. I actually saw it today. I was tagged in it actually today, where Grant Cardone is basically talking at the camera, and he knows who his audience is. So he's talking at Black people, and he's talking about how he generates passive income and he uses the passive income to buy more assets. And that he's not, he's talking about ball players and they're going out and they're, hurting their joints and breaking up their body. For what? He's talking about rappers and how they go out there and they go on tour and they do the drugs and they do this and they do this. For what? And so he's like, I wish that my dad, this is exactly literally what he says, I wish that my dad was here to get in my face and say the same things that I'm saying to you to me. Now, if anybody knows Grant Cardone's full story, and it's not relevant, but it is, I believe that he was homeless at one particular point in time. I believe that he was addicted to drugs at one point in time. And so his story is one of cleaning himself up after going down, deviating from the path, and now he's realized relative success. Really like huge in pop culture, really huge in Black celebrity culture. And so I believe that based off of what I've read and what I've been exposed to of him, that there is an air of sincerity when it comes to how he's communicating with his audiences. However, when I watched that video, it kind of rubbed me the wrong way because, and this is a part of the conversation that needs to be had around financial trauma and financial empathy and just the need for representation in this space. When he's talking to the Black community, it sounds like in his mind, the overwhelming majority of people that subscribe to his content based off of the language that he uses, use Ebonics, are interested in the celebrity lifestyle, whether that be rapper or some kind of artist, whether that be an athlete, ball player, whatever. And he's not taking into account the portion of the population, the Black population, who are educated, who do not watch sports, who do not have any aspirations to go into athletics or into being an artist, whether that be a musical artist or what have you. He just assumed that we all have the same experience and that we all show up the same way, and that this is like the archetype of the Black person in his audience. And that's where the problem is. So when I had some time to sit and reflect on what it is that he said, and what it is that I know of him based off of consuming his content for all of these years, and what it is that is being articulated or communicated through Black media in the way that there are Black people in Black media who have taken offense to what it is that he's saying. the conclusion that I've landed on is that it's not the message, it's the messenger. And I don't think that I don't think that there's anything specifically wrong with the fact that there are people who are taking offense to the messenger over the message. But I would challenge the people who are watching or who are consuming his content to listen to what it is that he's saying and imagine if somebody with a black face was saying the same thing. Imagine if we have these conversations, particularly during Black History Month, right? When we have these conversations about diversity, equity, and inclusion, about showing up as your authentic self, about not code switching, about being free to communicate how we want to communicate. We have these conversations about showing up to meetings with a do-rag on, and this was not intentional as a prop rather. But when we have conversations about authenticity, part of that conversation is being able to talk the way that we talk, whether we're on stage or we're off stage, with people who look like us or in mixed company. Part of those conversations involve being able to be our complete selves. And so I think that when you have those conversations in mixed company, when you have those conversations in rooms with white people who are trying to understand and respect what it is that we are demanding or what it is that we are requiring as it relates to being our complete selves in these spaces, by then engaging us in the way that we usually engage, can we then take offense to it? And I think that, if we have really honest conversations with ourselves about what that looks like and where it's coming from, that two things can be true at the same time. That it can be true that he is appropriating Black culture, that it can be true that he is saying things that can come across as offensive to Black people. And it can be true that he knows he knows who his audience is, and he knows how to communicate with that audience in a way that A, gets people talking about him, B, gets people to like him, C, gets people to elevate him to a status where he can then turn this into revenue through sales, through whatever. And so as we're having these conversations, as we're having these inner dialogues, and we're determining like, okay, why is it okay? And kind of goes to the argument of the use of the N-word, right? Why is it okay for Black people to use the N-word and it's not okay for white people to use the N-word? And that's a rhetorical question, right? Because obviously there's a lot of history behind the use of that word. And there are Black people who are very firm on this side that says that word is unacceptable. Nobody should use it, Black or white. And then there are Black people on the other side of the spectrum who's like, no, that word is reserved for us to use how we choose to use it. But white people cannot use that word. And then there's Black people who's in the middle who's like, you know what? Like, if that white person is a friend of mine, or if that otherwise non-Black person is a friend of mine, then whatever, they could use the word. And so there's all of these different standards around how we choose to be communicated with. All of these different standards around what we accept in that communication. And there's a lot of these different standards that place non-Black influencers on a pedestal to say that they deserve the level of recognition because they have some kind of secret knowledge around wealth that other Black people who are talking about the exact same thing somehow do not. And so in a way, as I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about all of these conversations, are we perpetuating our own trauma by deifying the white saviors in the world, regardless of what their intent is, or otherwise non-Black saviors, right? Because there's something to be said about Robert Kiyosaki and the work that he's done in the Black community as well. or the work that he's done on the Black community is what I should say. Why are we not raising to the same level of stature Black financial educators, Black financial influencers, Black people who are passionate about serving Black people? So I just wanted to jump on really quickly because that was on my heart. I have a newsletter that I would love for you guys to subscribe to. There is a weekly post that goes out on Fridays at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. It is free, but there are options to support what it is that I'm doing by buying into the paid membership. That is $10 a month, and that is on Substack. It's called Overcoming Financial Trauma, and you can find that at rockcamsabri.substack.com. So check it out. And let me know what your thoughts on this topic are in the comments. I'm trying to be more active on YouTube. This is the first time that I've broadcasted specifically to YouTube, YouTube alone. And so I saw a couple of people come in and watch for a little while, and I appreciate that. But show me some love, subscribe, like, share, and definitely have some dialogue in the comments below. See you guys next time.